And so if you're joining us late, I've just kind of reviewed what the houses are for each of you by your sidereal rising sign. What we're going to do now is kind of dive into the Pisces archetypes and themes. And I hope you brought some paper and a pen with you, because this one's juicy. I was working on just kind of like refreshing some content this morning, and I decided to add some new avenues for us to explore with this particular new moon in Pisces. But Pisces, let's talk about the archetype. Let's talk about the themes. Pisces is mutable water, right? It's nebulous, it's ephemeral, it's emotional, it's spiritual, right? Pisces is the fishes. It falls in the 12th house of the natural zodiac, right? And so we consider it, if we're going by modern rulers, we consider it ruled by Neptune. If we're going by traditional rulers, we consider it ruled by Jupiter. I normally encourage you, when you're reading like a horoscope or exploring astrological interpretations, keep both planetary influences in mind, because they can both flavor, right? But it represents endings. Pisces represents endings and hidden things, like the unconscious mind, like we were talking about earlier. It represents our beliefs, right? Especially the unconscious beliefs that guide our behavior. That the unconscious beliefs that we're not aware of, that influence the decisions that we make and the way that we respond and react to our environment and the people around us. Dylan says, so my Mars is in Gemini. How should I work with my Mars in the 10th house of this new moon? So Dylan, help me clear up here. You have Mars in the 10th house natally. If you want to confirm for me on that, that would make a difference in how I approach the answer to that question. Oh, your Mars is in Gemini. And Mars in the 10th house with this new moon. Oh, I see what you're saying. So, Dylan, what this is going to do, so because Mars rules your Aries house or your Scorpio house, but it happens to be transiting your 10th house, what that is going to indicate is two things, potentially. It's going to indicate, while it's in your 10th house, an increase in activity. You're going to be a lot busier. You're going to notice a lot of running to and fro, right? Thankfully, Mars is direct, so that should mean you're getting shit done, right? When Mars is retrograde, there's a lot of to and fro, but you're not usually accomplishing much. But Mars is direct right now, so that should be helping you. So that's the first thing that's going to indicate. With the new moon, what that means is that whatever it is that you initiate with this new moon, the benefits of that, or the repercussions of that as they play out, will further the agenda of your Aries house and your Scorpio house. Okay, because Mars rules those houses, or co-rules those houses, at least Scorpio, right? So what's going on in your professional life, or whatever it is you start in your professional life right now, is going to affect in some subsequent way what's going on in those other two areas of life for you. That's how we would read that in the chart. And so anytime you have a planet that's not native in the same house that you're having a new moon or a full moon in, go look at what houses that planet is the natural ruler of, because those are houses where you will also feel the effects of the activity in whatever house you're having the new moon or the full moon in. If that makes sense. If that doesn't make sense, let me know. I'll be happy to answer your questions in the comments. Hi, Jonna. I'm so happy to see you with us. It was good to chat with you the other day. That was a pretty funny meme you sent me. So back to Pisces. Pisces is ruled by Neptune. We're talking about how it represents endings and hidden things, right? It also represents institutions, and these are institutions of seclusion, where you're pulled away, you're secluded from society in general. So places like hospitals or prisons or nursing home, convalescent facilities, or things like that. Pisces is the archetype of the martyr. Dylan says that totally makes sense. Thank you. Yay. Good. Glad to hear it. It's the archetype of the martyr. It's the most spiritual of all the signs. And he represents the mystic and the dreamer, the spiritual leader. So think like Jesus, right? Represented by the fishes, or even other spiritual leaders qualify here. But Pisces also represents the delusional one. So you kind of always want to keep that caveat in mind as you're working with Pisces. Jonna says, I'm glad I made it. That meme. Oh my goodness, that was hilarious. So when inspiration is on the menu, that's always fun. I love to work with inspiration. This new moon, the themes that are active around it are dreams, are fantasy, healing. They're themes of compassion and karma and mystery, right? But especially inspiration, like we were talking about. And what does that mean if you think about it? Inspiration, if you break that down, it means to breathe life into, right? Or to breathe spirit into, right? And so anytime you can take inspired action, action that has a little spirit to it, you can get some really amazing outcomes. And so if you're feeling inspired to take a particular action at this new moon, I would invite you to do that. And I would invite you to really stop and consider why, and maybe get real clear about what outcome you want, because that's what a new moon is all about. Unity, pacifism, these are also themes. Escapism, decay, and decadence, those are Pisces themes as well. But Pisces is really, it's the spirit of service, right? And it's service of the spirit as well. It's selflessness, it's sacrifice or martyrdom, like we mentioned earlier, but it's also addiction, and it's denial of reality, right? It's opposite Virgo, which is the energy of realism. And it's about escapism. It's what we want to run away to when we're trying to run away from life and reality. And as the final sign of the zodiac, it represents the completion of the circle, right? It's the end of a cycle. It's the return to the earth of the clay of the flesh, right? So that it can be reborn into new life in another go around the wheel in Aries, right? Aries is the newborn. So we start the cycle over. Pisces is always the ending of the cycle and the completing of it. Pisces is seeking return to source at its fundamental core, right? So that's kind of what we're working with tonight, is that notion. So Pisces and Neptune, if you have your birth chart handy, take a look. So Pisces and Neptune in the birth chart can really speak to where we're capable of self-sacrifice, okay? But it also can show where we are most capable of deception, including self-deception, and including allowing ourselves to be deceived. Okay, so you always kind of want to operate with that, extra awareness when you're working with Pisces and Neptune. And Pisces is also the sign of faith, so let's not forget that too. And that's faith in the unknowable, right? Faith in the unprovable, being, of course, like we said, opposite Virgo, which is the sign of our day-to-day reality, right? So this is really a new moon that's a little bit about reprieve, maybe for some of us, about preparing to initiate a new beginning for all of us as we get ready to have our new moon in Aries next month, right? It can be about turning over a new leaf for some of us. It can be about forgiveness or confession or wiping the slate clean, okay? So if you're ready, grab your pen and paper. I'm going to run through some prompts, and I have quite a few. And what I want you to keep in mind as we do this practice, you don't need to work with all of them. You can pick one. You can pick a couple that resonate with you. You can work with, we're going to have another new moon in Pisces next year. You can work with different ones next year, right? You're going to have it in the same house. So you can work with different ones next year. But there's a lot, and don't try to take them all on. Just go with what speaks most strongly to you. Jonna says Neptune in the 2nd and Pisces on the 6th house cusp. I don't envy you, Jonna, because I've got Neptune in the 6th house too, and I've got him conjunct my North Node. And Neptune clouds things. He makes things difficult to discern, right? And God bless anyone who has Neptune contact on a point or a planet that's supposed to guide their path through life, because it can make it really, really hard to understand what is that path, what does it look like, where does it lead, where does it go, how do I start it, all of that. And when it comes to being in your 6th house and the work you do every day, that can be a real challenge to try to pin down what is the right type of work for me, what is the best way for me to be of service to my fellow man, because that's what our 6th house is, right? It's the way that we serve others for pay, right? And when you have Neptune then in the 2nd house, that's going to compound it, because that throws a lot of uncertainty around your financial situation and your earnings. And that's a load of stress. I don't envy you there. Maybe we need to chat, Jonna. But I really don't envy you. And what I would do is I would point you in the direction of Pisces and Neptune, right? Because here's the thing. We try to figure out, well, what does it mean? Well, it's screaming right at us. Pisces and Neptune are about selfless service. They're about spiritual service. They're about ministry. We're going to get into some of that. And so maybe some of the prompts that we're working through tonight might speak to ways that you can better step into work, daily work and service that's more aligned with your chart, because then you're activating that Pisces 6th house, and you're really going to trigger the ruler in the 2nd house to be bringing you income with maybe a little more constancy, maybe a little more flow, right? Maybe a little more flow. But we can tap into that. We can work with it. The idea is you just got to pin it down and figure out what's the best way to do that. So grab your paper. Here's our prompts. I didn't mention, if you joined us late, if you need to know what house this is falling into for your rising sign, let me know your rising sign in the comments and I'll recap that for you. But consider with tonight's full moon, do you have a need or a desire for healing a spiritual or an unconscious or a highly intimate personal wound? And if you do, I want you to consider, what does a healthy outcome look like for you? What is the first step towards healing that you can take? And I want to offer you a hint. Sometimes that first step towards healing is as simple as allowing yourself to be open to the possibility of healing. So if this is you, and if it is a wound, especially if it's one you've been carrying for a long time, or if it's a wound that is related to Chiron in your chart, allowing yourself to be open to the possibility of healing can be huge in allowing healing to move into your life. Jonna says, totally. I never know what the hell to do. We do need to chat again. I need to get through some icky financial stuff first. I feel you there, Jonna. I really, really do. Thank you so much. Flow would be fab. Absolutely. Absolutely. I've been spending a lot of time learning and thinking about flow lately and contemplating flow and what it means to be in flow. Flow. That seems like a very Neptunian theme, right? So here's a thing, Jonna, that I want you to consider as you're navigating this. What's hidden? So what's what's Neptune's domain, right? Neptune has rulership of the sea, right? We're talking about Poseidon, right? We're talking about the ocean. Well, what's in the ocean? Shipwrecks, sunken treasure, waiting to be discovered. That's all yours for the discovery. So tap into that. Tap into that idea of sunken treasure, of pearls, of things that might be small, minor irritants that can be turned into beautiful treasure. Okay? That's all Neptune, transforming things into value, right? So maybe go that direction. Consider, are you hiding or escaping from something in your life? What is it? How can you begin showing up? And what's the first step? What is something that you can do in the next couple of days? Because remember, with a new moon, you want to take action right around the first light of the new moon, which is usually about 2 days after. Okay, so be prepared with a concrete, specific action in mind that you can take in about 2 days towards that. In what way can you be of selfless service to your fellow man? How can you show up in unconditional love, right? If Pisces is about returning to source, and source is about unconditional love, right? Consider that. How can you show up with unconditional love? How can you hold space for the worst of us? This is about ministry, like we just mentioned, ministry, washing the feet, right? Not preaching. This is not about preaching. This is about ministry. How can you be of service? Selfless service. And what can you begin to incorporate into your life? This is turning that on its head a little bit to allow for greater self-care, right? We're talking about retreat, rest, relaxation, reflection, introspection, right? So what can you begin to incorporate into your life to allow for greater self-care? just like these things, like rest, like relaxation, like reflection, like meditation, spiritual development even. What do you do to wash your own feet is what we want to know. In essence, what do you do to care for the least considered and most worked part of you? What brings you reprieve? Think about working with that tonight. Jonna says, whoa, that's awesome. I have a weird fascination with Neptune and the sea, but I'm also scared of them both. I can feel a little kinship with you there, Jonna. Just because I almost drowned in the Atlantic Ocean when I was a small child. Getting washed out to sea by a wave, that was kind of fun, and it stuck with me for a long, long time. It really colored a lot of my life afterwards in a very unconscious way. It took me a while to figure out. And then once you figure those things out, though, once you can pinpoint the source of that fear, you can go walk right up to it and say, hey, how's it going? I'm your friend. And that's what we did. So thankfully, no more fear of the sea, but I do. It's caused a weird fascination with the ocean for me for much of my life. Probably scared the crap out of my mom, too. So self-care, what brings you reprieve? That's where we left off. What do you need to sacrifice in order to follow your dreams? Are you prepared to make that sacrifice? And if so, how can you make it meaningful? And then that thing that you might need to sacrifice, is it maybe your comfort? Think about that one, okay? How can you turn over a new leaf and invite a new result in your life? Where is it that you need to start with a clean slate? Okay, how can you breathe new life into that area of your life? And where is it that you find inspiration? Where can you go to for inspiration? Okay. Jonna says, holy smokes, I almost drowned in the river first bump. That's when clarity came to me, Jonna. This happened when I was about 3 years old. And it was a thing I would periodically remember throughout my life, not realizing that it probably had a tremendous psychological impact. But I was always terrified of deep water. If I couldn't touch the bottom, I did not want to be in water. I would panic and freak out. But yeah, it only took me a couple decades to kind of tie it right back into that cause. And once I did, it was like, oh, well, that makes sense. And once your fear makes sense, it's less scary. So any place where you find in your life you have fear, and this is definitely, it's kind of a 12th house thing. It's more of a Saturn thing, I think fear is. But anywhere you find that you have fear in your life, explore that fear if you can, because that is your path to growth. It really is your path to growth, and it can, in a lot of ways, be your path to healing. Your greatest healing in some cases. What new belief would you most like to cultivate in your unconscious mind? This is a great Pisces theme. What new belief would you want to cultivate? If you could cultivate any new belief at all, take a moment also tonight to think about what initiation journey or goal that you have is. What does it look like? What's the ideal outcome you want to manifest around it? What's the ideal outcome you want to manifest in your life and in your experience? And if you can, relate that back to the house that this new moon falls in for you to make it really super relevant. So what I want you to do is write that out on your paper along with all the details you can think of. I want you to be as specific as possible. And I really recommend setting intentions around outcomes, which are, quote, end quote, for the highest good of all involved. And I know that sounds a little bit nebulous, but it allows room, important room, for both free will and synchronicity to operate in your life, okay? And also reinforces that our intention is pure when we use that phrase. And it cultivates, I think, a little bit of humility in us about presuming that we know what's best for others, because sometimes we like to think that we do, and we really don't. Sometimes we like to think we know what's best for us, and we really don't, right? Our own selves. And if we can't figure out what's best for our own selves, how the heck can we presume to know what's best for others? Universe knows what's best. God knows what's best. Divinity, whatever that is for you. Source knows what's best, right? Universal mind, whatever that is. That's what knows what's best. Let that operate freely and with gratitude in your life. And you'll be amazed at the kind of changes you can experience. So write out an affirmation too with this particular thing that is you want to start with this new moon. Write out an affirmation about what it is you'd like to initiate now, or you can write out like a simple and kind of easy to believe statement around that new belief you'd like to cultivate. It's something that reinforces it, but reinforces it gently. You don't want to take too big of a leap in terms of changing your belief, at least at the outset. Take a moment, like I said, grab your pen and paper. We're going to write out, I'll recap these really quickly. I'm going to speed recap. And in the meantime, if you're ready to start, you can start. But if you're just joining us, here are some prompts. A lot of prompts tonight. Like I said, this is juicy, which figures we're in a water house. Do you have a need or a desire for healing a spiritual, unconscious, or highly intimate personal wound? What does a healthy outcome look like for you? What's the first step towards healing you can take? And as I hinted, sometimes that's as simple as allowing yourself to be open to the possibility of healing. Are you hiding or escaping from something in your life? From what? And how can you begin showing up? What's the first step that you need to take? Something that you can do in the next couple of days, right? You want a concrete step that you can do in the next couple of days on anything that you're planning on starting with this new moon. In what way can you be of selfless service to your fellow man or woman, or neither, non-binary? How can you hold space for the worst of us? And what I mean is by the worst, what we would consider the worst elements of humanity, right? Because Pisces is about ministry, right? It's about holding space for the absolute most horrible parts of ourselves and forgiving those parts of ourselves and recognizing that they are worthy of forgiveness, right? So really, like I said, this is about ministry. It's about washing the feet and not preaching. What can you begin to incorporate into your life that allows for greater self-care? And so we're talking about things that allow for rest or relaxation, that allow for reflection, time for meditation or spiritual development, those sorts of things. What is it that you can do that's sort of washing your own feet in the sense of you're wanting to care for what is the least considered and most worked part of you? Okay. That might literally be your feet. Okay. What do you need to sacrifice in order to follow your dreams? What is it that you might need to let go of? And if you do need to sacrifice something, how can you do it in a way that's meaningful? And consider whether or not that thing you need to sacrifice is maybe your personal comfort. Maybe you just need to step outside of your comfort zone. Maybe just step into a little bit of discomfort to grow. Because then that comfort zone expands, right? It gets a little bigger every time. How can you turn over a new leaf? Or wipe the slate clean? Where can you find inspiration that will allow you to breathe new life into the part of your chart that Pisces rules? What belief would you most like to cultivate in your unconscious mind? Okay. And so just take a moment to think about whichever of those prompts is speaking most directly to you this evening, and write out what it is that you are wanting to let go of. I'm going to take a moment to write mine out, and then we will reconvene here in just a moment. I lost my place in my notes. Let me find that first. And let me read for you too on in our book, right? The same book we do every new moon, the Moon Gazing Journal. I'll read to you what it says on today's page. If you don't mind me rambling while you're writing. So sometimes at the new moon, when we read out of the Moon Gazing Journal, it's a full moon quote. So bear with me. When the moon is full, mankind is one. That's a Chinese proverb. And I really think I like that. Kind of makes me wish the moon were full right now. Right? Mankind being one. Anyway, so write out your intention. Get specific about the outcome. Don't get specific about the manner in which it manifests, but get really detailed and really specific about the outcome that you want. Okay? says, excuse my stream of thoughts. Let's go with Seymour here. It's a big one, Jonna. Let's see what's going on here. And your stream of thoughts are welcome, even if you're catching the replay. And I apologize. I know sometimes I don't always get back to comment on your comments when you're watching the replay. I do always read your comments when you're watching the replay, though. So I want you to know that, whether you're catching the replay on Facebook or you're watching it on the YouTube channel. Even if I don't get the opportunity to reply, I do always read them and I welcome them. Jonna says, for self-care, I need to find quiet places to retreat to. Yes, you do. Let's talk about that. Weirdly, I parked at the dam this week and it was refreshing. I didn't get out of the car though. Get out of the car, do some grounding, especially if you're near water and you have the opportunity to do that, Jonna. That will help you immensely. I didn't get out of the car though, she says. I have to make some rough decisions soon regarding 7th house stuff. You and me both, dear. I have Chiron in the 7th and feel that wound. That's tough. I'm sorry. I've been beating myself up about whether I've been delusional about some things that are going on. I'm not, but I have to release that feeling, and that is true. You do. I want to believe I can make it on my own, and I can, but I need to believe it. I have a huge cloak of illusion to throw off in that regard. A few Pisces kicks me every time. Pisces is kind of a pain in the butt. I agree with you there. You can make it on your own. And maybe that's a good place to start in terms of working with your new moon in Pisces energy, in the sense that that's a belief that you need to alter. It's a belief that you need to cultivate, right? Here's the thing about Pisces, Jonna, and I didn't mention this when we're talking about the archetypes and the themes, but it's very relevant and it's very pertinent, and it's maybe something that we could discuss more frequently in the context of Pisces. Pisces, this is really codependent energy. Really codependent energy. And it's not necessarily in a healthy way. It's not necessarily codependent in a collaborative or healthy symbiosis, right? It's more of a codependency that's about enabling bad behaviors, or enabling our worst instincts, or enabling our escapism, or enabling our desire to not have to be accountable or to not have to show up, right? But that's something that I think we don't talk about often enough, that Pisces can really be about codependency, especially when it's flavoring your 7th house experience, okay? Especially when it's flavoring that. Do you have an affirmation? Did you think about an affirmation that you would like to work with today, Jonna? I didn't get really specific about my intention after I told you guys to get really specific. I didn't flesh it out yet, and so maybe I'll spend some time to do that later on this broadcast. What I wrote though is my intention to step into new professional projects and collaborations with my whole heart, and to work in a spirit of gratitude and appreciation towards a common goal. I'm really kind of excited. I have some opportunities to do some new professional collaborations around some really awesome astrology things, and it's exciting for you. Yes, you do, and I would encourage you to. And I want to reinforce for you, Jonna, baby steps, right? Like, it's scary to think of trying to do it on our own. And so it's going to be hard, if not impossible, to try to jump into that belief with both feet right away. So start with little stuff, like things that you know you're capable of taking care of for you. Ways that you know you're capable of taking care of yourself, and leverage that knowledge as evidence and proof that you can build on that, right? So let your affirmations build on what you already know to be true, truly, in baby steps. And as you come to internalize the new baby step, more preferred belief, you'll slowly make progress. And it becomes faster and faster and easier to do as you progress down that path. I think honestly, when we first start trying to change our beliefs, it's the hardest. But once you kind of get the hang of it, you realize, hey, these are totally subjective. Beliefs are totally subjective. And you can change your stance, your position, your opinion, your preferences, your judgment on anything at the drop of a hat if you want to. Anytime new information or new evidence is presented to you, there's nothing that stops you from changing your mind. Beliefs are no different, but sometimes they trick us into thinking that they are. So there we have it. I think that's today's broadcast. I don't really have a lot of announcements for you other than the April overview and short reports are up on the website. So read those if you haven't. I have to apologize because you're bearing the brunt of my sacrifice with this, because I've kind of sacrificed the time that I've been spending writing the full horoscopes by sign for you for the immediate future while I work on some of these joint projects. But these joint projects are going to allow me to bring awesome and amazing new and fresh content to you in a better way, and hopefully fairly soon. And if not, you'll see other types of content filling the gap in the short term, but stay tuned for news on that. And in the meantime, I'm going to be head down, clickety-clackety at the keyboard, working away for y'all. I'm excited about this. This is really kind of cool. Anyway, go read the April overview and short reports if you haven't already. Join me live Monday at 1:30 p.m. This is Mountain Daylight Time. 3:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 8:30 p.m. British Standard Time. And if you're joining us from Australia, it's going to be early Tuesday at 2:30 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time. That's the next Sidereal Insights Astro Update. Join me. We're going to have updates on current sidereal transits and how you can best align with them and let them work for you. So definitely join me for that broadcast. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and that way you'll never miss a broadcast. Even if you can't join us live on Facebook, I'll give you a link right here to the YouTube channel. Subscribe if you'd like, because it helps if I turn my keyboard back on. There we go. Subscribe. YouTube. It's always good. Okay. Oh, Mercury shadow ends mid-month. It's when the yellow runs out in your ultimate astrological planner. I'll show you. Maybe. If I have mine handy. So we're talking April, right? So we just had Mercury redirect not that long ago. And if you have an ultimate astrological planner, you know Mercury retrograde is marked by yellow in your planner, right? So here you can see, I can see what you're seeing here. The yellow, that's when Mercury is going to leave. That's the last day of him in his shadow period before he leaves the shadow period, in case you want to know that. If you don't have an ultimate astrological planner, you can get kind of a free sample if you want to try one out. We're going to be starting on the 2020 planner here pretty soon, so that'll be available, but you can still get a 2019 Ultimate Astrological Planner and have a look. It's color-coded with your best days for luck, business, love, and big yellow warning for Mercury retrograde so that you never have Mercury retrograde sneak up on you ever again. Check it out. You can download a free sample right there, and thanks for watching. I'll see you all again next time. Join me Monday.